The clinking of crystal glasses echoed through the Aurelius, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, where only the wealthy and the ruthless could breathe without permission. Under the golden chandelier, billionaire tech mogul Derek Voss leaned back in his chair, a smug grin stretching across his face as he lifted a glass of Chateau Margaux. Beside him, his mistress Lila Crane let out a flirtatious laugh, loud enough for nearby tables to hear exactly the way he liked it. Tonight was about showing the world that he had upgraded. Servers glided past with silver trays, businessmen nodded respectfully, and Derek basked in the kind of attention he believed he was born to own. He didn't know destiny was already walking through the door. A sudden shift in the room's energy made several heads turn. The maitre d' straightened instinctively. Even the live violinist missed a note. Derek followed their gaze, annoyed at first. Then, his entire world collapsed in silence. Standing at the entrance was Elena Foster, the woman he had discarded like yesterday's news. The ex-wife he told everyone was too plain, too weak, too useless. Her black maternity dress outlined the gentle curve of her 5-month pregnancy, his child he never believed she deserved to carry. But it wasn't her presence that made Derek choke on his wine. It was the man standing next to her, Adrian Cole, the reclusive Wall Street powerhouse. The CEO feared even by billionaires. The man who could destroy entire empires with a single phone call. And he had his hands steady, protective at the small of Elena's back. Every whisper in the restaurant froze. Every stare followed her. Every ounce of Derek's arrogance drained from his face. Elena wasn't the abandoned woman he had left in a tiny queen's apartment. Tonight, she walked with dignity, with power, with someone far stronger than Derek could ever hope to be. And as she locked eyes with him across the room, a quiet fire burned in her gaze, one that promised this was only the beginning. Derek's glass slipped from his fingers and shattered. Long before Elena Foster walked into the Aurelius, with the quiet strength of a woman rising from ashes, she had lived through a kind of heartbreak that could have broken anyone else completely. Just 8 months earlier, her life had been painfully ordinary, a modest job as a financial analyst at a mid-sized Manhattan firm, a tiny but cozy apartment she shared with her husband, Derek Voss, and an uncomplicated dream of building a family. She wasn't wealthy, she wasn't glamorous, and she certainly wasn't someone the city's elite would ever look at twice. But she had loved Derek with a sincerity that now felt foolish. Back then, Derek wasn't the cold, polished billionaire he paraded himself as today. He was a struggling entrepreneur, chasing investors, burning through savings, and craving validation from the world. Elena supported him through every failure, worked overtime to pay rent, cooked simple home meals to save money, and believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. She was his anchor, the only one who never left. But the moment his company went viral after a single lucky partnership with a major tech fund, everything changed. Suddenly, Derek had money, fame, attention, and an ego that dwarfed Manhattan's skyline. He started dressing differently, speaking differently, standing differently. He began leaving earlier, coming home later, smelling like cologne she didn't own. Then came the whispers. Then came the lies. Then came Lila Crane, the PR specialist hired to fix his brand. Ender 7. Elena didn't want to believe the rumors. She didn't want to believe the late-night messages, the mysterious work trips, the sudden coldness in Derek's voice. She wanted to believe marriage meant loyalty, but life had other plans. The night everything fell apart still haunted her like a ghost she couldn't quiet. Elena had just discovered she was pregnant, something she thought would bring them closer. She waited for Derek with nervous excitement, the ultrasound picture tucked carefully in her pocket. He arrived past midnight, not alone. He walked in with Lila clinging to his arm, her lipstick smeared, her hair disheveled, her laugh dripping with the arrogance of a woman who believed she had already won. Derek didn't even look ashamed. "Elena," he said, waving a dismissive hand, "don't make this dramatic. Lila and I are together now." Elena's breath stopped. "Together? Derek, we're married." "For now," he corrected. His voice was ice. "But come on, you knew this was coming. You and I, we're from 2 different worlds. You're sweet, but you're not built for my life." Her hands trembled. "I'm pregnant." That was the moment that truly shattered her. Derek's face didn't soften, didn't break, didn't even shift. Instead, he stepped forward, lowered his voice to a cruel whisper, and said, "Then you'll handle it on your own." I can't have a kid dragging down my public image, not right now. The next morning, she returned home from work to find her belongings packed in boxes, her access to their finances frozen, her number blocked, her apartment lease canceled. She was left with nothing. Nothing except the life growing inside her. For months, Elena lived in a rundown Queens apartment, eating dollar store noodles, working double shifts, crying quietly into her pillow so her baby wouldn't feel her sadness. She avoided mirrors, avoided people, avoided hope. She thought her story was over. She didn't know fate was already guiding her toward the one man Derek feared most. She didn't know Adrian Cole would soon change everything. Elena Foster's apartment in Queens wasn't really an apartment. It was a box with peeling walls, a drafty window, and a radiator that hissed louder than her own thoughts at night. After Derek threw her out, this was all she could afford. She told herself it was temporary, but temporary had a cruel way of turning into months. The neighborhood wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't comforting either. The smell of street food mixed with rain-soaked concrete and the sound of distant traffic was her nightly lullaby. On the 4th floor, Unit 4C, she lived alone with her growing belly and the echo of a life she once believed was permanent. Each morning she woke before sunrise not because she wanted to, but because her body had become a battlefield. Morning sickness hit like a wave. She'd kneel over the sink, gripping the counter as nausea tore through her, her legs trembling. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she just stared at the cracked tiles and whispered, one day at a time. Her job at the retail finance office wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough for rent and cheap groceries. The walk to the bus stop felt longer with each passing week. She held her coat tightly around her body, not because of the cold, but because she didn't want strangers staring at her stomach. Her pregnancy, once a joy, had become a source of fear. Every step reminded her of how alone she truly was. Worse than the loneliness were the rumors. Derek's PR machine had gone to work fast. One by one, former friends, co-workers, neighbors, people who once smiled at her, began treating her like a scandal waiting to happen. She trapped him. She wanted money. She got pregnant on purpose. She ruined his reputation. None of it was true. All of it spread. She kept her head down at work, avoided break room conversations, ignored the judgmental glances when she warmed up ramen noodles for lunch. Some afternoons, she excused herself to the bathroom, pretending she had to pee, but really, she just needed 5 minutes to cry where no one could hear. At night, she sat on her mattress on the floor, the only piece of furniture she had aside from a second-hand dresser. She placed her hands over her stomach and whispered apologies to the tiny heartbeat she carried. "I'm trying," she'd say softly. "I promise I'm trying." But promises didn't keep the electricity on. One cold evening, after a long shift, she climbed the stairs to her apartment, her legs aching from the weight she was carrying. When she reached her door, she noticed something taped to it, a bright yellow notice she recognized instantly. A final warning for late rent. Eviction pending. Her vision blurred. She had been juggling bills for months, choosing to buy prenatal vitamins instead of paying the gas bill, choosing groceries instead of rent. But this was the moment the dam finally cracked. Inside the apartment, she sank to the floor, clutching the notice as sobs tore out of her. Her breath hitched, her chest tightened, panic rising like floodwater. And then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something in her gut told her to pick up. "Miss Foster?" a calm voice said. "My name is Adrian Cole. I believe you need help." She froze. She had never met him, never spoken to him. But the name, the Adrian Cole, was impossible to mistake. Before she could even respond, the voice added, "I'm outside your building. Please open the door." Her heart stopped. Her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. For a long moment, Elena didn't move. She sat frozen on the cold wooden floor, eviction notice still trembling in her hand, the phone pressed weakly against her ear. Outside her 4th floor window, she could hear the distant hum of Queens traffic, arguing neighbors, someone's TV blasting, but her world had gone utterly silent. "Miss Foster?" the man repeated, voice low, composed, impossibly steady. "This is Adrian Cole. I'd like to speak with you." Her breath stuttered. Adrian Cole wasn't just a name. He was a myth in the financial world. Wall Street's phantom king, the man who rarely appeared in public, yet moved markets with a single decision. CEOs feared him. Banks courted him. Media chased him. And he was calling her? Elena swallowed hard. I think you have the wrong number. No, he said gently. I'm exactly where I intend to be. A chill ran down her spine. How do you even know me? She whispered. There was a pause, short, but weighted. Because, he finally answered, I saw what happened to you. And I don't ignore injustice. Before she could respond, he added, Please open the door, Elena. Her heart nearly stopped. She staggered to her feet, gripping the wall for balance. Her body felt heavier than usual, the pregnancy pressing uncomfortably against her ribs. She wiped her tears quickly, though she wasn't sure why. Trying to look presentable for a man like him felt laughable. Her door had 2 locks. Her fingers fumbled on both. When she finally pulled it open, cold December air swept into the apartment, and behind it stood a tall figure in a charcoal coat, snowflakes caught in his dark hair, eyes sharp yet unexpectedly warm. Adrian Cole, in the flesh, standing at her doorstep. For a moment, Elena forgot how to breathe. Adrian looked at her small, run-down apartment, the flickering kitchen light, the stacks of unopened bills, the single mattress on the floor. But he didn't show pity, not disgust. Only a quiet, fierce anger, though not at her. May I come in? He asked softly. She stepped aside, embarrassed by the state of her life. Sorry, I wasn't expecting company. You've been through enough, he said, removing his gloves. I didn't come here to judge you. But Elena couldn't help it. Shame wrapped around her like barbed wire. Why are you here? She asked, voice cracking. No one even calls me anymore. Adrian studied her gently. Because you deserve better than what was done to you. Her throat tightened. You don't even know the story. I know enough. His gaze softened. I know Derek Voss. And I know what men like him do to women who threaten their image. Her chest tightened at the sound of Derek's name. So this is revenge for you? She asked bitterly. Using me as leverage? Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice. Elena, if I wanted revenge, I had 1,000 chances before now. Here's if he won them. Then, after a beat, I'm here because I saw a woman fighting alone when she never should have been. Her eyes burned. She hated crying in front of strangers, but something about Adrian's presence, steady and unhurried, loosened the walls she'd been holding up for months. I'm not strong, she whispered. Yes, he said, without hesitation. You are. You just forgot. She stared at him, this impossibly composed man in her tiny, broken world. He extended a simple, unassuming card. If you'll trust me, he said, I can help you rebuild everything he tried to destroy. Elena hesitated. Her fingers hovered. Her life had already collapsed once because she trusted the wrong man. Could she trust another? As she finally reached for the card, Adrian's expression shifted quiet, knowing. This decision, she would soon learn, would change everything. The next morning, Elena sat on the edge of her thin mattress, staring at the business card in her hand as if it were a foreign object. Adrian Cole and Hawthorne Capital. Even the embossed lettering felt intimidating, heavy with a world she didn't belong to. She had barely slept. Her mind replayed everything from the night before in looping fragments, his knock, his calm voice, the way he stood in her doorway like a storm waiting to break. She kept telling herself it couldn't be real. People like Adrian didn't walk into the lives of people like her. They didn't climb 4 flights of rickety stairs in Queens. They didn't look at women abandoned and pregnant and say, I want to help. But he had. And now she had no idea what to do. A knock startled her. Not again, she thought, her heart racing. But it wasn't Adrian. It was Mrs. Calderon, her elderly neighbor from 4B, holding a small paper bag. Breakfast, the woman said gently. You didn't come by yesterday. And so. Elena tried to smile. Thank you. I'm just dealing with a lot. The old woman touched her arm, eyes soft with concern. You're stronger than you think, mija. If only Elena believed it. After Mrs. Calderon left, Elena dressed slowly, pulling on a sweater she'd worn so many times the fabric had thinned at the elbows. She brushed her hair, tied it back, and looked at her reflection. She didn't look powerful, didn't look capable. She looked like a tired pregnant woman trying not to collapse. Still, she picked up the card again. If you'll trust me, I can help you rebuild everything. It had sounded impossible, but so had Derek showing up with Lila in their living room that night. So had being thrown into poverty overnight. So had surviving it. Maybe impossible things could happen on both ends of life. Just before noon, she made her decision. The office tower was on Park Avenue, tall enough to scrape the winter sky. Elena stood outside the revolving doors, tugging nervously at her sleeves as sleek black cars glided up the street. Wealth moved around her like a different species, tailored coats, leather briefcases, people who walked as if the world belonged to them. She felt painfully out of place. Inside, marble floors gleamed beneath her shoes. Security guards in navy uniforms nodded politely. Receptionists smiled with practiced warmth. But as Elena stepped toward the elevator, she saw something that made her stomach twist, a giant digital display with scrolling financial news. And right there, bold and impossible to miss, Derek Voss, founder of Vostech, prepares to announce new expansion deal. Her breath caught, his face stared back at her, polished and confident. Beside him, a smaller picture of Lila Crane. The caption read, "Vostech's PR director sparks new branding vision." Elena's throat tightened. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. "Miss Foster?" She turned. Adrian stood there, immaculate in a dark suit, but his eyes softened when he saw her shaken expression. "You came," he said quietly. She nodded. "I almost turned around. I'm glad you didn't." He gestured for her to follow him into a private elevator. The doors slid shut, and the city noise faded until there was nothing but the hum of the rising lift. "I know that coming here must feel overwhelming," Adrian said. "But I asked you because you have something valuable." She shook her head. "I have nothing. You're wrong." He looked directly into her eyes. "You have truth, and truth is the one thing men like Derek cannot control." Her breath caught. "And I need someone with truth," Adrian added. "Someone willing to fight back." Fight back. The words felt foreign, dangerous, and strangely powerful. When the elevator opened into a panoramic office overlooking Manhattan, Elena stepped out and felt, for the first time in months, a flicker of something she thought she'd lost. Possibility? Derek Voss prided himself on being impossible to surprise. He had built an empire by outsmarting competitors, predicting trends before analysts saw them, and stepping on anyone who dared get in his way. But ever since that night at the Aurelius, when Elena walked in with Adrian Cole, something inside him had begun to fracture. He tried to pretend it didn't bother him. He tried to hide behind arrogance. He tried to act like Elena was still the fragile, helpless woman he had tossed aside. But the image of her walking confidently beside Adrian replayed in his mind like a glitching video loop. Worse, people saw it. Investors whispered. Board members exchanged glances. His own staff avoided eye contact. And Derek felt something he hadn't felt in years: fear. Lila Crane, lounging on the velvet couch of his penthouse, scrolled through her phone and sighed dramatically. The gossip sites are eating this up. Ex-wife glows while billionaire's mistress looks cheap. Ugh, people have no taste. Derek snapped. Why was she even there? She doesn't belong in a place like that. Lila raised an eyebrow. Maybe she does now. He shot her a cold look. But even Lila, who loved mocking Elena, had noticed the way Adrian stood beside her that night. Protective, present, confident. That kind of presence didn't happen randomly. Maybe Adrian's using her, Lila said, tossing her phone aside. Men like him don't do charity work. Derek scoffed. Elena, please. She can barely handle basic budgeting. She's not useful to him. Then why was he at her side? Lila pressed. Derek didn't answer. Because he didn't know. Because it didn't make sense. Because something wasn't right. The next morning, at Vostech headquarters on 57th Street, Derek walked through the lobby, still in a foul mood. Employees straightened when they saw him, but he noticed their curious glances, the ones they thought he couldn't see. He entered the executive floor, slammed his office door, and pulled up internal reports. Financial movements, stock fluctuations, competitor analysis. Numbers usually soothed him. Not today, because one name kept appearing where it shouldn't. Cole and Hawthorne Capital. Adrian's firm had begun quietly buying shares of smaller companies tied to Vostech's infrastructure. Nothing illegal, nothing overt, just enough to send a chill through Derek. What is he planning? Derek muttered. As if summoned by paranoia, his assistant buzzed him through the intercom. Sir, a reporter is requesting a statement about the restaurant incident. He clenched his jaw. No comment. Welfram's off to the dole. Another pause. And sir, Mr. Varelli from the board asked if you were aware Adrian Cole was seen meeting with two of our senior investors. Derek shot up from his chair. What? His assistant hesitated. They said it looked friendly. Friendly. Friendly was dangerous. Friendly meant alliances. Friendly meant influence. Friendly could destroy him. His pulse thundered. Elena, a woman he had considered irrelevant, was now a threat. Adrian, a man he once underestimated, was circling him like a shark. Derek slammed his fist onto the desk. Elena can't be part of this. She's not capable of it. But even as he said it, he remembered her expression at the restaurant. Calm, cold, self-assured, nothing like the woman he humiliated months before. He felt something shift. Not guilt. Not regret. But something worse. Losing control. That night, alone in his penthouse, Derek scrolled through Elena's social media. She posted nothing new, no clues, no signs, just silence. And silence, in Derek's world, was the most dangerous noise of all. He leaned back, gripping his glass of scotch. Fine, he muttered. If Adrian wants to play, I'll remind Elena exactly who she's dealing with. He didn't know it yet, but threatening her would be the biggest mistake of his life. Lila Crane always believed she understood power. Not real power, Derek's kind, but the cheaper, shinier version she'd built her life upon. Attention, whispers, headlines, curated envy. She had clawed her way into Derek's world through charm, manipulation, and a well-practiced ability to weaponize a smile. So, when the photo of Elena and Adrian began circulating online, grainy but unmistakable, Lila felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Threatened. She sat in Derek's penthouse kitchen, scrolling through comments as the winter sun cast a sterile glow across the marble counters. Is that Adrian Cole with Elena Foster? She leveled up. Why does she look more expensive than Lila? Plot twist of the year. Lila's perfectly manicured fingers tightened around her phone. What is this? She snapped as Derek entered the room, knotting his tie. He glanced at the screen, jaw twitching. Noise. Noise? Her voice rose. Your ex-wife looks like she just stepped out of a Vogue spread with Adrian Cole. Do you have any idea what that means for your reputation? I don't care about Adrian, Derek muttered. Oh, please. Lila rolled her eyes. You should. Because people are already writing narratives, Derek. Narratives where you look like the petty, insecure, disposable one. He flinched. Just a little. Lila saw it, and she smiled. Fear in a powerful man was delicious. And worse, she continued, leaning back on the counter. They're calling Elena the sympathetic one. That word stung him like acid. Elena, Derek spat the name out. She knows nothing about this world. Lila's smile sharpened. Good, then she won't know how to survive what's coming. Derek looked at her sharply. What are you planning? What you should have done from the start. Her eyes glinted. Control the narrative. Destroy her before she becomes a problem. He hesitated. She saw it. Don't get soft now, she said coolly. She isn't your wife anymore. She's a liability. Derek didn't respond, but his silence was permission enough. That afternoon, Lila sat in her PR office, fingers flying across her keyboard. She drafted targeted rumors disguised as casual conversations, anonymous tips, whispers to gossip bloggers, curated leaks to social accounts known for scandal. Her story spread like wildfire. Elena Foster manipulating billionaire Adrian Cole. Pregnant ex-wife seeks revenge, insider claims drama brewing. Sources say she's using her unborn child to regain wealth and status. Lila didn't stop there. She dug through old photos, found an image of Elena crying outside a subway station months ago, taken on a day Elena had fainted from exhaustion. Lila sent it to a tabloid with a fabricated caption, suggesting Elena had emotional instability and financial desperation. It mine his face, or life form us, in $C. Within hours, social media turned vicious. Elena saw none of it at first. She was sitting in Adrian's office, reviewing spreadsheets he'd asked her to analyze, when her phone began buzzing relentlessly. Notifications piled up. Her stomach tightened. She clicked one. Her heart dropped. Dozens, then hundreds of comments flooded her screens. Accusations, lies, cruelty so sharp it felt personal even from strangers. Her hands trembled. Adrian noticed instantly. Elena? He asked quietly. She tried to speak, but her throat closed. She turned her phone toward him. For a moment, his face didn't change. Not a twitch, not a blink, not a breath. Then his eyes darkened with a cold, dangerous fury she had never seen. "This wasn't Derek," Adrian said. "This is her." "Lila?" Elena whispered, voice cracking. "Yes." He stood slowly, every movement measured, lethal, and she just crossed a line she will regret. Elena swallowed. "What do we do now?" Adrian looked at her, not with pity, but with a promise. "Now," he said, "we stop letting them choose the battlefield." And just like that, the war truly began. Elena had never been inside a boardroom like the one Adrian led her into. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan like a living painting. The Hudson shimmered in the winter sun, and the Empire State Building pierced the horizon like a monument to ambition. The room smelled faintly of polished wood, leather, and something else she couldn't quite place authority. But it wasn't the view that made her breath catch. It was the long mahogany table, surrounded by men and women in designer suits, who all turned toward her as she entered. Their expressions were unreadable curiosity mixed with something she couldn't name. Respect, suspicion, calculation. She clutched her coat tighter around her growing belly. "Adrian," one man said, "is this the consultant you mentioned?" "Consultant." Elena almost turned around and walked out, but Adrian stepped beside her, steady as ever. "Yes," he replied simply. "This is Elena Foster." Her pulse hammered. "I know what you're thinking," Adrian continued. "She's not a Wall Street insider. She's not a corporate shark, but I trust her analysis and her perspective." That stunned the room. And her. Adrian trusted her? Trusted her enough to bring her here, in front of executives who controlled billions? Elena kept her gaze down, until Adrian gently touched her elbow. "Have a seat," he said quietly. She obeyed, her palms damp, her heart painfully loud. Screens lit up, spreadsheets loaded, voices rose and fell. The meeting began. At first, she listened silently, afraid to breathe too loudly. But then Adrian pulled up a series of financial charts, documents she had helped review the night before. They displayed anomalies inside Vostek's infrastructure contracts, irregularities, unreported expenses, numbers that didn't make sense. Her stomach twisted. She recognized them. Her own name had once been attached to those contracts. Derek had forced her to sign documents she didn't understand back when she believed he needed help. She never questioned him. She never thought he'd use her signature for illegal purposes. "Miss Foster," one executive asked suddenly, "do these patterns look familiar to you?" Her blood ran cold. Adrian looked at her, calm, almost reassuring. "You don't have to say anything you're not comfortable with," he murmured. But Elena lifted her chin. "Yes," she said, voice trembling. "I've seen these numbers before." A ripple went through the room. Elena continued slowly at first, then with growing clarity. She explained the inconsistencies, the manipulation of expenses, the pressure Derek put on her to just sign. The way he always said, "Leave the business to me, Elena. You wouldn't understand it anyway." Her cheeks flushed not from shame this time, but anger. The executives exchanged looks. One finally leaned forward. "Miss Foster, you realize what you're describing could expose a major corporate fraud, right?" She swallowed hard. "I'm not trying to expose anything. I'm just telling the truth." Adrian's voice was calm but firm. "And sometimes, truth is exposure." Another executive asked, "Why would Derek use your name?" Elena exhaled. "Because he thought I was harmless, invisible, someone nobody would believe." The room fell silent. Then Adrian, who had been quiet until now, spoke with a measured intensity. That invisibility is exactly what he counted on, but he underestimated her. A low murmur rose around the table. Adrian wasn't done. "From this point forward," he said, "Elena's insight becomes central to our strategy, and anyone who underestimates her will find themselves at a disadvantage." Elena's breath hitched. "Central? Huh?" One executive raised an eyebrow. "You're giving her a seat at the table?" Adrian nodded. "Yes, starting now." Her vision blurred not from fear this time, but something unfamiliar. Strength. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know how Derek would react. She didn't know if she was ready for any of this. But as she looked out over Manhattan, her hand instinctively resting on her stomach, she realized something. For the first time since Derek broke her life apart, she wasn't fighting alone anymore. 2 days after the boardroom meeting, the world around Elena began shifting in ways she wasn't prepared for. It didn't happen dramatically, no explosions, no shouting, but subtly, like the quiet reshaping of gravity. People looked at her differently now. They spoke to her differently, because Adrian Cole had given her something Derek never allowed her to have: visibility. Cole and Hawthorne Capital released a discreet internal memo announcing Elena Foster as a temporary financial consultant on a confidential audit. Her name was printed in the same document as senior analysts and department heads. And although the announcement wasn't public, in the glass towers of Manhattan, nothing stayed secret for long. By noon, whispers had already begun circulating. Is that her, the woman working with Adrian? She's the one Voss screwed over, right? I heard she caught something huge, something the SEC might want. Every elevator ride became an exercise in courage. Every glance felt weighted. Some held curiosity, some admiration, some doubt. But for the first time in months, not a single one held pity. Still, pressure crushed her shoulders. She was pregnant, exhausted, new to this world of sharpened smiles and hidden daggers. She shouldn't have been here. And yet, somehow, she belonged more with these wolves than she ever had in Derek's shadow. That afternoon, Adrian invited her to join him at a private investors' luncheon at the Regent Club, one of those old money institutions so exclusive you couldn't even look at the front door without a member invitation. Elena panicked. I can't go there, she whispered. Those people there in magazines, on boards, in politics. You're Elena, Adrian cut in. And that's enough. But she shook her head. I don't have anything to wear. Adrian's lips twitched slightly. That's an easy fix. Before she could argue, his assistant appeared with 2 sleek garment bags and a pair of low heels, simple, elegant, not flashy, chosen with care for a pregnant woman. Elena's voice cracked. I can't accept this. You're not accepting favors, Adrian replied softly. You're accepting a seat at the table. Be Tandus. The Regent Club looked like old New York wealth carved into stone. Gold-plated sconces, oil portraits, mahogany walls. A place where deals worth billions were whispered over crystal decanters. As Elena entered beside Adrian, a hush rippled through the room. Not pronounced, not rude, but noticeable. People straightened, eyes widened slightly, because it wasn't just that Adrian Cole had brought a woman. It was that he had brought her. A man at the head of the room, silver-haired and commanding, stood to greet them. Adrian, we didn't expect you. I know, Adrian said with a polite smile. This is Elena Foster. She's consulting with us. The man's gaze flicked to her belly, then back to her face, not judgmental, but assessing. Miss Foster, he said, extending a hand. I hear you caught something our analysts missed. Elena flushed. I don't know if that's true. It is, Adrian said firmly. People turned toward them with new interest. Questions came. Thoughtful ones. Challenging ones. What pattern did you see? How long do you believe the inconsistencies have existed? Why didn't Vostek catch the error internally? Elena's voice was shaky at first, but her brain, sharp, analytical, stronger than she gave herself credit for, took over. She explained the falsified numbers, the manipulated statements, the strange funneling of funds. She told the truth, and the truth held the room. By the time she finished, the silver-haired man let out a low whistle. Miss Foster, you may have uncovered the start of the biggest corporate scandal in the last 3 years. Elena blinked. Scandal? Hair? Derek? A soft murmur settled across the table. Adrian leaned closer, voice low enough only she could hear. This is why I needed you here. She swallowed hard. Does Derek know yet? No, Adrian said. His eyes were ice. But when he does, everything he built will start to crack. Elena exhaled shakily as realization washed over her. For the first time since Derek shattered her life, she was no longer the hunted. She was becoming the danger. Derek Voss had always been a man who believed he was untouchable. But for the past 48 hours, something had shifted in the atmosphere, subtle at first, then unmistakable. Calls went unanswered. Emails were abruptly polite. Meetings he was used to commanding suddenly felt tense. People were watching him. People were whispering. And whenever he walked into a room, a strange silence settled, like dust before a storm. He tried to ignore it, chalk it up to paranoia, but denial cracked wide open the moment his CFO, Grant Melville, stormed into his office without knocking. We have a problem, Grant hissed. Derek didn't look up from his laptop. Grant, unless the building is on fire, it's worse. Things act. That finally made Derek lift his head. Grant threw a stack of reports onto Derek's desk. Cole and Hawthorne Capital is buying positions in 2 of our partner companies. Quietly, strategically. Derek stared at him. So? Grant nearly shouted. So Adrian Cole doesn't make moves unless he's preparing to take someone down. The words struck like a punch. But Grant wasn't finished. And the board knows. They're asking questions. Aggressive ones. Derek's pulse hammered. Adrian. This all led back to Adrian. Or rather, Elena. His jaw tightened. What did she tell him? Derek growled. What lies is she feeding him? Grant hesitated. I don't think they're lies. Derek slammed his hand on the desk. She doesn't know anything. Grant flinched. She signed off on those documents, he said quietly. Derek's blood ran cold. She was my wife, he snapped. I told her what to sign. That doesn't mean she understood it. Grant lowered his voice. But legally, that won't matter. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then Grant delivered the killing blow. Derek, if she talks to the SEC, you're done. That evening, Derek retreated to his penthouse, once his sanctuary, now a cage. He paced the living room, phone in hand, calling Lila again and again. No answer. Finally, after the 10th call, she picked up, her tone irritated. What do you want? What is happening? Derek demanded. Why is Cole going after me? What did you start? Lila scoffed. You're the one who left your ex-wife emotionally destroyed and financially ruined. Did you really think she'd just disappear? She doesn't have the brain for this. Derek snapped. Someone is using her. Lila's voice turned cold. Maybe you should have respected her instead of humiliating her. Derek froze. It was the first time Lila had ever taken Elena's side. He didn't like it. Are you with me or not? He hissed. Lila hesitated, a dangerous, telling silence. I'm with whoever wins, she finally said, and hung up. Derek's hand trembled around his phone. His mistress was slipping. His company was slipping. And Elena, the woman he thought he buried, was rising. The next morning, Derek marched into the Vostech boardroom, determined to reassert control. But the moment he entered, he sensed the shift. 12 board members, all staring at him. Cold, distant, calculating. Derek, the chairman said, we need to discuss the audit. Derek stiffened. What audit? A folder slid across the glossy table. In bold, merciless lettering, Cole and Hawthorne, preliminary findings, Vostech anomalies. His vision blurred. Adrian had already begun. We'd like your cooperation, the chairman said, and transparency. Derek's chest tightened. You think I'm hiding something? We think, the chairman replied carefully, that your ex-wife may have knowledge we're obligated to review. The room tilted. Elena? Derek whispered, stunned. He had destroyed her. He had erased her. He had expected silence. Instead, she had become the one person the board wanted to hear from. He was losing control of his image, his empire, his carefully constructed reality. Derek Voss had finally met a force he couldn't manipulate. And her name was Elena Foster. Elena didn't expect Adrian to show up at her apartment that evening. She certainly didn't expect him to stand outside her door with a look she had never seen on his face before, something between protectiveness and barely controlled fury. Are you okay? He asked as soon as she opened the door. She blinked. Yes, I think so. No, Adrian said quietly. You're not. Because something came up today, something you need to know before anyone else tells you. His nada, endem. Her stomach tightened. What happened? Derek, he said. Just the name made her chest hurt. Adrian stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. His presence filled the tiny space, steady and grounding, but the tension radiating off him warned her that whatever he was about to say wasn't small. He held a single folder in his hand. Elena, he said, voice steady but dark, we discovered something new in the documents you once signed for Derek, something he hid from you, something that could have ruined your life. Her breath hitched. He placed the folder on her small kitchen table. Sit. Her knees felt weak as she obeyed. Adrian opened the folder slowly, too slowly. Elena, those signatures tied you to transactions you were never supposed to be implicated in. I knew that already, she whispered. I knew he tricked me. You didn't know the scale, Adrian corrected. The signatures weren't just for routine expenses. They were used to approve transfers into private subsidiary accounts Derek created under shell identities. She froze. What does that mean? It means, Adrian said carefully, Derek laundered money through fake development projects. And legally, your signature shows you approved the movement of those funds. Her pulse pounded in her ears. I didn't know, she managed. I swear I didn't know. I know you didn't, Adrian said firmly. But the law doesn't care about what you didn't know. If the SEC had discovered this before we did, you would have been the first person they came after. A wave of dizziness swept through her. She pressed a hand against her belly, as if shielding her child from the truth. I could have gone to prison, she whispered. Adrian's jaw clenched. Yes, and Derek knew that. He counted on it. Experience. Elena's vision blurred with tears, not from fear, but from betrayal, so deep it felt like her chest was splitting open. How could he? She choked out. How could someone who said he loved me put me in that kind of danger? Adrian crouched beside her, his voice low, steady. Because men like Derek only love themselves. Tears slipped down her cheeks, silent and painful. Elena, Adrian said gently, there's more. She looked up, raw, trembling. What else? Adrian exhaled. We also discovered that Derek kept copies of those documents, hidden, not destroyed. Almost as if he planned to use them later against you. Her lips parted in shock. He wanted leverage, Adrian continued. If you ever threatened his image, he could have had you arrested. For a long moment, Elena couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. Her entire body felt numb. Then, like a dam breaking, her fear twisted into something else. Anger. Pure, searing, righteous anger. He wanted to ruin me, she whispered. He threw me out, took everything, humiliated me, and still wanted a way to destroy me if I ever fought back. Adrian nodded. But he failed, he said softly, because you're not alone anymore, and because now we control the truth, not him. Elena wiped her tears, her hands suddenly steady. What do we do now? She asked. Adrian met her gaze, calm, unflinching. Now, he said, we show the board what Derek tried to hide. Elena drew a breath. For the first time, the fear didn't win. This time, she was ready to fight. The next morning arrived gray and sharp, the kind of New York winter day where the cold felt personal. Elena walked beside Adrian through the marble lobby of Cole and Hawthorne Capital, clutching her coat a little tighter. Her heart raced not from fear this time, but from the weight of what she now knew. Derek had used her, endangered her, prepared a legal noose she never saw coming. She expected Adrian to walk her straight to another meeting, but instead, he took her to the top floor of his private office, a space so quiet it felt insulated from the world. Floor-to-ceiling windows cast a pale light across polished steel and dark walnut surfaces. Adrian gestured for her to sit. There's something we have to discuss before we move forward, he said. Elena sank into the leather chair, bracing herself. Is it about the documents? That's part of it, he replied. But it's bigger. He slid a new file across the table. Elena, someone leaked to the press that you're involved in an SEC investigation. Her breath caught. What? That's not true. I haven't spoken to anyone. I know, Adrian said calmly, but perception can do damage even when reality can't. He opened the file. Headlines stared back at her. Ugly. Loud. Cruel. Derek Voss's ex-wife, named in financial scrutiny. Sources. Elena Foster expected to testify in corporate probe. Thank you for watching. Pregnancy used for sympathy insider questions. Motives. Her chest tightened painfully. Lila did this. Absolutely, Adrian said. And Derek let her. The betrayal tasted metallic. But why now? Elena whispered. Why make it about me? Adrian held her gaze. Because they think the easiest way to protect themselves is to break you before you become credible. For a moment, Elena felt the old fear rise cold, choking, familiar. It reminded her of nights crying alone in Queens, afraid she'd never escape Derek's reach. But this time, she forced herself to inhale, to steady. What do we do? She asked. Adrian leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low. We give them what they fear most. Her brow furrowed. The truth, he clarified, but we control how it comes out. Not them, not the media, not Derek. He pulled out another document, a timeline of every fraudulent transfer Derek made under her name. Elena's stomach knotted. All of this, with my signature attached. Yes. His voice held no softness, only resolve. And that's why the next move must be precise. We can't let the story get away from us. She swallowed hard. You think I should come forward? I think, Adrian said, that the board will demand your testimony soon. And when they do, Derek will panic. He'll make mistakes, dangerous ones. Elena stared at the papers, hands trembling. What if I mess up? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What if they don't believe me? Adrian moved around the table and knelt beside her chair, not as a CEO, not as a strategist, but as a man grounding her back into herself. Elena, listen to me. You survived the worst part of Derek, long before I arrived. You endured things most people couldn't bear. And you're still here. She blinked, tears threatening. You're not weak, he said softly. You were isolated, manipulated, lied to, but you were never weak. Her breath shook. For once, Adrian added, you're walking into a battle with someone at your back. She wiped her eyes and nodded. Okay, she whispered, let's do it. Just then, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Adrian rose, smoothing his suit. Come in. His assistant entered, face pale. Sir, you need to see this. She handed Adrian a tablet. He looked at the screen, then his expression hardened. What is it? Elena asked. Adrian turned the tablet toward her. It was a leaked internal memo from Vostek, calling for Elena Foster to appear in front of the board. Immediately, her world tilted. They're trying to corner you, Adrian said. No, Elena whispered, pulse pounding. They're trying to break me. And for the first time, she wasn't running. She was ready. Elena had never seen a corporate building feel so much like a battlefield. The Vostek headquarters looked the same as it always had: sleek glass walls, towering chrome pillars, the cold, polished floors that once echoed her timid footsteps when she came to bring Derek lunch. Back then, she thought her place was in the shadows, unseen, unheard, unnoticed. Not today. Today, she walked through the doors with her chin lifted, hand resting lightly on her belly, and Adrian Cole at her side. The receptionist's eyes widened enough to confirm that word had spread faster than wildfire. Elena Foster is here for the board meeting, Adrian said, voice smooth but carrying an authority that left no room for argument. Yes, of course, Mr. Cole, the receptionist stammered. They're expecting you. Expecting. The word tightened her chest. They weren't expecting the old Elena, the trembling wife who apologized for breathing too loudly. They were expecting a woman they intended to corner, intimidate, and break. But that wasn't who walked in today. When the elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, silence fell. The board members were gathered near the glass wall overlooking Central Park, murmuring anxiously. Derek stood apart, pacing in sharp circles, his expression a mixture of fear, rage, and something else: panic. He froze the moment he saw her. Elena, he breathed, you shouldn't be here. She held his gaze. No, Derek, you shouldn't have brought me here. His jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the chairman cleared his throat. Miss Foster, Mr. Cole, please join us. Elena stepped forward. Her heartbeat roared in her ears, but her voice, when it came, was calm. You asked for me. I'm here. They moved into the boardroom. 12 chairs, 12 faces watching her. The room hummed with tension, thick enough to cut. Derek sat across from her, his stare drilling into her. The chairman began. Miss Foster, we've been made aware of documents bearing your signature tied to unusual financial activity. We need to determine your involvement. Elena's fingers twisted together beneath the table. I understand. Derek leaned forward, voice carefully measured. Sweetheart, you don't have to do this. The word hit her like a slap, sweetheart, the same word he used when convincing her to sign things she didn't understand. Adrian's jaw tightened. Elena breathed in, then spoke. I didn't know what I was signing. Derek told me it was harmless. He said the business was too complicated for me to understand. A murmur rippled across the board. The chairman lifted a file. These signatures approved fund transfers that were later moved into private holding accounts. Did you authorize that knowingly? No, Elena said, louder this time. I had no knowledge of any illegal activity. Derek misled me. Derek slammed his hand on the table. That's a lie. End quote. Adrian's voice dropped to a deadly calm. She has proof. Elena opened her bag, pulling out a small flash drive. Her hands didn't shake. "These are voice recordings," she said. "Conversations between Derek and me from the time he pressured me to sign. He told me everything was routine. He told me not to worry. He told me my signature was just a formality." Derek's face drained of color. "You recorded me?" he whispered. "I had to," Elena replied, "because I knew one day you'd try to blame me." The chairman ordered the files played. Derek's own voice filled the room. "Just sign it, Elena. Don't ask questions. You wouldn't understand this stuff anyway. No one is going to look at your name. It's fine." When the recordings ended, the room fell into stunned silence. The chairman turned slowly to Derek. "Is there anything you'd like to explain?" Derek's lips parted, no words came out. And for the first time since their marriage ended, Elena saw him for exactly what he was. A man terrified of a woman he once believed was powerless. She straightened, gathering strength she never knew she had. "I'm done hiding," she said softly, "and I'm done letting him use me." Adrian met her gaze, steady, proud. The boardroom had shifted. Elena wasn't prey anymore. She had become the witness who could bring an empire down. The boardroom felt like it was holding its breath. The moment the recordings ended, something invisible snapped, an unspoken shift in power, a tectonic crack beneath the polished table. Derek Voss, the man who once strutted through this room like he owned gravity itself, looked pale, shaken, almost small. The chairman closed the folder. "Miss Foster, thank you. This information will be critical as we proceed." Derek jolted upright. "Proceed with what?" he barked. "You're taking her side? She's my ex-wife. She's unstable, she's lying." "Stop." The chairman's voice cut like ice. "Your explanations will come later. We've heard enough for today." The words were a quiet execution. Derek turned to Elena, fury boiling behind his eyes. "You don't know what you've started." Elena held his stare steady, unflinching. "Yes," she said softly, "I do." Before Derek could respond, the door opened. Two SEC officials stepped inside. A ripple of shock swept the room. Even Adrian stiffened slightly, though his expression remained composed. "Mr. Voss," one agent said, "we need to ask you a few questions regarding suspected financial irregularities tied to Voss Tech operations." Derek stammered, This is a misunderstanding. I haven't done anything." One official handed him a preliminary inquiry notice. "This is not an arrest, but you are required to cooperate." Immediately, the humiliation hit him like a blow. The board members exchanged looks, cold, calculating looks that said one thing clearly. This wasn't a personal problem anymore. This was a corporate liability. The chairman folded his hands. "Mr. Voss, until this matter is resolved, you are temporarily suspended from decision-making authority." Silence. Then Derek exploded. "Suspended?" he roared. "You believe her over me? She's nothing. She's—" Adrian stood. The room froze. "Choose your next words very carefully," Adrian said. Every syllable delivered with lethal calm. Derek's mouth snapped shut. Because even in his rage, he understood one thing. Adrian wasn't just a powerful man, he was the kind of powerful who didn't raise his voice, the kind who didn't need to. The SEC officials motioned for Derek to step aside with them. He didn't move. He looked at Elena again, betrayal curling around his expression like smoke. "You didn't do this alone," he muttered. "He put you up to it." Elena's voice remained steady. "No, you did this to yourself." Derek's face twisted, and for a fleeting second, everyone in the room saw him clearly, not the billionaire, not the visionary, not the charismatic leader. Just a coward terrified of the truth. When the SEC agents escorted him out, the boardroom fell into a stunned silence. Elena released a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Her hands shook beneath the table. Adrian placed a steady hand on her arm, subtle, grounding. "You did well," he murmured. She didn't feel like she had. Her pulse raced, her vision blurred at the edges. The emotional weight of years' fear, humiliation, desperation pressed down on her shoulders. The chairman cleared his throat. "Miss Foster, I want to assure you, you are not under investigation. You are a witness. A crucial one." Elena nodded, though her voice trembled. "Thank you." "And Mr. Cole," the chairman added, "your firm's cooperation will be essential moving forward." Adrian gave a single nod. "You'll have it." As they left the building, flashes exploded from cameras outside news crews, paparazzi, bloggers. The story had already leaked. Elena shielded her face, overwhelmed. Adrian placed a hand at her back. "Stay close to me." She did. Because for the first time, the world wasn't looking at her with pity. They were looking at her with fear, curiosity, respect, and for the first time since her life shattered, Elena Foster had become a woman impossible to silence. Lila Crane had always believed she could control the story. She knew how to spin narratives, twist public sympathy, and turn lies into trending hashtags. She made a career out of owning the spotlight, shiny, sharp, and perfectly curated. But for the first time, the spotlight was burning her. And it wasn't soft, flattering PR light. It was harsh, unforgiving, exposing everything she thought she had buried. Because when the news of Derek's suspension hit every major network, journalists didn't stop at him. They came for the woman who shaped his image. They came for the woman who whispered into his ear. They came for Lila. Her phone exploded with notifications, calls, texts, emails, some from reporters, some from clients, some from people she never wanted to hear from again. She ignored them all. She sat in Derek's penthouse living room, pacing like a caged animal, the city skyline mocking her through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "This is bad," she whispered to herself. "This is really bad." She turned on the TV. Every station showed Elena's face. Not as a scandal, not as a victim, but as a credible witness. Elena Foster, the key to the Vostek investigation. Former wife exposes financial irregularities. New evidence suggests systemic misconduct. Entivo. Lila stared, bile rising. This wasn't how the story was supposed to go. Elena wasn't supposed to rise. Elena wasn't supposed to be believed. Elena wasn't supposed to matter. Lila threw her glass against the wall. "How is she winning?" she screamed. She was nothing, but deep down, she knew. Elena wasn't nothing. She was the one thing Lila never had: sincerity. And sincerity plays better on camera than lies, especially when the lies start cracking. When Derek finally arrived home, escorted by his lawyer, Lila rushed toward him. "Why didn't you tell me the SEC was involved?" she hissed. "Why didn't you tell me she had recordings?" Derek pushed past her. "Not now, Lila. No, right now." She snapped. "Everything is falling apart. The media is tearing me apart. Do you even know what they're saying? That I'm the mastermind, that I helped you hide money. You need to fix this." Derek rounded on her, eyes blazing. "Fix what? You started half of this. You went after Elena online, you stirred up the gossip, you pushed her to fight back." "Oh, please," Lila scoffed. "She was weak. I thought she'd crumble." "Well, she didn't." Silence. Derek's voice dropped. "And now she has Adrian Cole behind her. You have no idea who you picked a fight with." Lila glared. "You think I'm scared of him? You should be." For the first time, Lila saw fear, real fear on Derek's face. And that terrified her more than anything. The next morning, she walked into her PR firm with a forced smile and a too-tight blazer. She expected whispers, maybe judgmental looks. She didn't expect what she found. Her assistant stood waiting, hands clasped. "Lila," she said softly, "the managing partners want to see you." Lila straightened her shoulders. "Finally, they know I can turn this around." And was. But when she entered the conference room, every partner looked at her the way predators look at a wounded animal. "Lila," the senior partner began, "your contract is terminated, effective immediately." The words slammed into her. "Terminated?" She choked. "You can't." "We can," he said sharply. "You dragged your personal scandal into our firm and compromised our reputation." She stumbled backward. "You need me. I built this place." "No," the partner replied coldly. "You built yourself. And now you're the liability." Security arrived. They escorted her out of her office, out of her firm, out of the world she clawed her way into. As she stood on the sidewalk, shaking, watching her world collapse around her, one brutal truth settled over her like ice. Elena wasn't the one losing anymore. Lila was. Elena had barely processed the chaos of the board meeting and Lila's implosion when Adrian asked her to meet him at his private penthouse office, an ultra-secure space overlooking the East River. It wasn't the normal headquarters. This place felt different. Quieter, darker, like it was built for secrets. When she stepped inside, Adrian stood with his back to her, staring out at the city lights. He didn't greet her with the calm confidence she'd grown used to. His posture was tense, coiled, almost haunted. "Elena," he said, without turning around, "we need to talk." Her heart dropped. That sentence never meant anything good. She walked slowly toward him. "Is something wrong with the investigation?" "No," he replied. "Something is wrong with the truth." He turned. And for the first time since she met him, Adrian looked vulnerable. Not broken, not weak, but burdened, like he'd carried something for too long. "I haven't told you everything about Derek," he said. She froze. "What do you mean?" Adrian gestured to a chair. "Sit, please." She sat. He remained standing, hands folded, voice steady but low. "I didn't meet you by accident." Her blood ran cold. "You? What?" "I didn't know you personally," Adrian explained, "but I knew of you long before that night in Queens." A strange, icy dread crept up her spine. "How?" she whispered. Adrian finally spoke the truth. "Derek and I weren't just business rivals. We were partners 5 years ago, on a major development fund. I believed in him, I trusted him, and he betrayed me." Elena's breath caught. Adrian continued. "He falsified documents, rerouted funds, sabotaged a deal that cost my firm millions. He walked away clean because he framed a junior analyst on my team. A good man. That man never worked again." Elena's chest tightened. "So, you wanted revenge?" "No." Adrian stepped closer. "I wanted accountability, but Derek disappeared behind lawyers and NDAs. I couldn't touch him legally, not without someone who knew how he operated. Someone he underestimated." Her heart pounded painfully. "You mean me?" "Not a question. A realization." "You are the key," Adrian said softly. "You always were. Because you were the only person he allowed close enough to see the truth without realizing it." Elena's throat tightened. "And you thought you could use me?" Adrian flinched. "Yes. At first." The honesty stung more than lies ever could. She looked away, vision blurring. "So all of this, bringing me into those meetings, helping me, protecting me, it was all strategy?" "No," Adrian said firmly, "not anymore." He knelt beside her chair, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Elena, in the beginning, I saw you as leverage, but then I saw who you truly are. A woman Derek tried to shatter and failed. A woman who deserved justice long before I stepped in." Her breath trembled. "Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve the truth before we take the next step," he said. "And because I care about you, not as a tool, not as a strategy, as a person." Her heart twisted painfully. She didn't doubt his sincerity. His voice held a warmth and fracture she had never heard before. But the betrayal still lingered. "So, you used me," she whispered. "Just like he did." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Elena, I'm trying to undo the damage he caused. I'm trying to make things right." "You should have told me," she said, wiping her eyes. "I know," he whispered. For a moment, the room fell silent, two people caught between truth and hurt, between loyalty and consequence. Then her voice cracked. "What do we do now?" Adrian stood, shoulders straightening. "Now," he said, "we bring Derek down completely, and this time we do it together with nothing left hidden." Elena inhaled shakily. The truth hurt, but it also made her stronger, because now she understood something important. Derek wasn't the only one who underestimated her, and that mistake was about to cost him everything. Derek Voss had always believed empires fell from the outside. A competitor, a market crash, a scandal. He never imagined his empire would collapse from the inside. One board meeting, one recording, one woman he dismissed as irrelevant. But that's exactly what was happening. By the time he returned to Vostech the next morning, the building no longer felt like his. Security guards didn't greet him. Assistants didn't rush to his side. Conversations hushed when he passed. For the first time, Derek felt like a stranger in his own kingdom. He stormed into the executive floor, ready to reclaim control, yet found chaos instead. Board members yelling, lawyers storming halls, phones ringing off the hook, and every screen in the office flickering with the same breaking news headline. SEC reviewing Vostech ledger, possible corporate fraud. His stomach dropped. He pushed his way into the boardroom only to find his CFO, Grant Melville, speaking to a cluster of directors with a grim face. Grant turned, startled. Derek, you shouldn't be here. Don't start with me, Derek snapped. What's going on? A board member stepped forward, cold and surgical. The SEC requested full access to our financials. They have probable cause. Probable cause? Derek repeated, voice shaking with anger. Based on what? The chairman folded his hands. Based on the anomalies tied to your wife's signature. She's my ex-wife, Derek growled. Exactly, the chairman replied, which made her testimony even more credible. A choking silence fell. Testimony. She talked. She turned on him. She exposed him. Elena, Derek whispered, stunned. Grant exhaled. They believe she was coerced, used, manipulated. She wasn't coerced, Derek shouted. She knew what she was signing. But even he heard the lie in his voice. And so did everyone else. At that moment, Vostek's legal counsel, a stern woman with cold eyes, approached him with a thick stack of papers. Mr. Voss, the board has unanimously voted to place you on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. Derek froze. You don't have authority. We do, she said crisply. Clause 14B of your employment agreement, misconduct threatening the company's stability. The chairman stepped forward. Effective immediately, you have no decision-making power, no access to internal systems, no contact with staff. Derek felt the world tilt. You can't do this, he roared. We already have. He lunged toward the conference table, grabbing the papers, scanning them with frantic, trembling hands. Suspension. Asset freeze. Access revocation. His entire empire gone in a stack of signatures. This is a witch hunt, Derek hissed. Elena set this up. She's manipulating all of you. No, Grant cut in quietly. She didn't. Your ex-wife walked in and told the truth. Something you haven't done in years. The words landed like blows. Derek shook his head violently. Adrian Cole, he's behind this. He wants to take everything from me. The chairman replied, perhaps. But you gave him the ammunition. If you 70 process to Riazov. Derek's chest tightened painfully. He gripped the back of a chair for balance. He needed someone on his side, anyone. Where's Lila? He demanded. The board members exchanged uneasy looks. Grant sighed. She's not coming. What does that mean? It means, Grant said, her firm fired her. She's disappeared, and she refused to speak with your lawyer today. Derek staggered. He had no allies left. No mistress. No power. No credibility. Just a crumbling empire and a woman who had risen stronger from the ashes he buried her in. When security finally arrived to escort him out, Derek barely resisted. His legs felt like concrete, his vision blurred. He stumbled into the elevator once his golden throne, now a cold metal coffin carrying him down, down, down. As the doors closed, one final thought stabbed through his collapsing world. Elena wasn't his downfall. Underestimating her was. Lila Crane had always been able to land on her feet. Scandal? She'd spin it. Criticism? She'd twist it. Enemies? She'd charm them. But this time, her fall wasn't dramatic or glamorous. It was silent, brutal, and terrifyingly real. After being escorted out of her PR firm like a disgraced intern, she wandered midtown in a daze, the cold slicing through her thin coat. People rushed past, indifferent. Her phone buzzed non-stop calls from unknown numbers, angry clients, gossip reporters wanting statements. She ignored them all. By sunset, she ended up in a cheap cafe she once would have mocked, sitting alone with a lukewarm coffee. Her hands shook as she scrolled through social media. It was a disaster. Every major outlet had pivoted. Every narrative she tried to weaponize against Elena had turned into a boomerang and hit her instead. PR director Lila Crane linked to Vostek's scandal. Idea. Insider claims she managed Derek Voss's damage control. Anonymous sources suggest Lila encouraged targeting ex-wife. Anonymous sources. Of course. Derek. Rat. Coward. Snake. He had fed the press just enough information to shift blame toward her, hoping it would buy him sympathy or time or something he no longer deserved. Well played, she muttered bitterly. Throw me under the bus to save yourself. I doon it. I was beated. End quote. But the more she scrolled, the more she realized the truth. The press didn't believe him anymore. The public didn't believe him. And no one believed her. Because now, Elena was the face of the story. And Lila? Lila was the villain. The next blow came faster than she expected. Her landlord called. "Miss Crane, given your situation, the building is requesting you vacate by next week." "My situation?" she snapped. "I've never been late on rent." "As an office." "It's not about rent," he said quietly. "It's about reputation. The building doesn't want press outside the lobby." She hung up before he finished. Then her agent emailed. Her endorsement deals gone. Her PR clients cut ties. Her industry standing ruined. Within 12 hours, Lila Crane went from one of the most sought-after spin doctors in Manhattan to someone no one wanted to be photographed with. She slammed her phone on the table, chest tight, breathing shallow. "How did my life fall apart because of her?" she hissed. But deep down, she knew the truth. It wasn't Elena who destroyed her. It was her own arrogance. By the next morning, desperation sank its claws into her. She marched toward Derek's penthouse, shaking with anger, humiliation, and fear. She pounded on his door until her fist went numb. "Derek, open the damn door." Silence. She tried again. "I lost everything because of you." Still nothing. She pressed her forehead against the door, voice cracking. "We were supposed to be a team." The lock clicked. But the face that appeared wasn't Derek's. It was his lawyer. "Miss Crane," he said, tone robotic. "Mr. Voss is not receiving visitors." "Visitors?" she spat. "I'm not a visitor. You're someone he is no longer associated with," the lawyer cut in. "And given the ongoing investigation, it is in his best interest to sever all communication." "Important?" "Commander." Lila felt the floor fall out beneath her. "So he's cutting me off?" "Yes." "And he wants me to disappear?" "Yes." Her chest tightened. "He can't do that." "He already did," the lawyer said calmly. "And if I were you, Miss Crane, I'd hire my own attorney immediately." The door closed in her face. She stood there, shaking, humiliated, discarded, just like Elena once was. Except Elena rose. Lila was sinking. As she stumbled into the elevator, tears streaming down her face, she realized something she had never allowed herself to believe. She had backed the wrong man. And unlike Elena, no one was coming to save her. Because when the queen rises, the mistress always falls first. For the first time in months, Elena woke up without dread sitting on her chest. The morning light seeped through the penthouse guest room, where Adrian insisted she stay until the investigation stabilized. It was warm, gentle, a soft gold brushing across her skin as if life itself had finally stopped punishing her long enough to let her breathe. She sat up slowly, hand instinctively resting on her belly. "You're safe," she whispered to her child. "And we're not alone anymore." Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "Board ruling released. Come to the office when you're ready. Big day." Her heart fluttered, not from fear, but anticipation. Something was changing. She dressed carefully, choosing the simple navy dress Adrian's assistant had picked out for her weeks earlier. Not glamorous, not flashy, but strong. Respectable. A woman who survived hell and walked out carrying truth like armor. When she arrived at Cole and Hawthorne, people didn't stare at her with curiosity anymore. They nodded with respect. A receptionist smiled genuinely. A security guard held the door for her. An analyst whispered, "That's her." "Everybody." A senior executive said, "Morning, Miss Foster." It was surreal. And overwhelming. But not frightening, not anymore. Adrian waited for her in his office, standing by the window with Manhattan glittering behind him. "You made it," he said softly. "You asked me to come," she replied, giving him a small smile. He let out a breath, almost as if seeing her eased something tight in his chest. "There's something you should see." He handed her a folder. Elena opened it carefully. Inside were the results of the board's emergency vote. Effective immediately, Vostek appoints a temporary restructuring committee overseen by Cole and Hawthorne Capital. Her eyes widened. You're taking over?" "Temporarily," Adrian corrected. "Just long enough to stabilize the company and clean out the corruption." "And Derek?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "He's finished. Legally, publicly, financially, there's no path back for him. Out of never." Elena exhaled, a complicated mixture of relief and sorrow. She never wanted his destruction. She wanted freedom, but sometimes freedom required consequences. "Does this mean it's over?" she asked. Adrian shook his head gently. No, Elena. It means it's just beginning. For you. He handed her a second document, one with her name printed at the top. Consultant to Senior Oversight Committee, Strategic Analyst. Salary. More in a year than she made in her entire life combined. Elena's breath caught. I can't accept this. You earned it, Adrian said. You helped uncover the truth. You put your life on the line. Without you, this entire operation would have collapsed. Tears blurred her vision. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, she whispered. No, Adrian corrected softly, stepping closer. You believed in yourself the moment you walked into that boardroom and faced Derek on your own terms. Her heart squeezed painfully, but he wasn't done. Elena, there's something else, he said quietly. Colin Hawthorne has a penthouse in Midtown that's been empty for 2 years. Fully furnished, safe, spacious, comfortable for a mother and her baby. Her jaw dropped. Adrian, it's yours, he said. If you want it. She shook her head, overwhelmed. I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything, he said. You're accepting what you deserve. Her eyes filled, not with fear, not with uncertainty, but with possibility, a future, a home, security, dignity, something Derek never gave her. Adrian stepped closer, voice lowering. You're not just rising from what he did to you, Elena. You're building something new, something better. She looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who walked into her life when she had nothing left. At the man who helped her stand on her own feet. At the man who cared for her, not because she was useful, but because she was her. For the first time, she let herself smile soft, warm, hopeful. Okay, she whispered. I'll take the job. And the penthouse. Adrian exhaled, relief flickering across his face. And Adrian? She added quietly. Yes? Thank you. He shook his head, eyes soft. No, Elena, thank you. Because the woman standing before him wasn't broken. She was becoming unstoppable. Winter melted slowly into the first breath of spring, and with it, Elena's world transformed in ways she once believed were impossible. Her new penthouse, quiet, warm, filled with sunlight and gentle luxury, became a sanctuary where she finally felt safe. No footsteps to fear, no voices to shrink beneath, just peace and the soft rhythm of her unborn child, reminding her that life still had beautiful chapters left to write. The SEC investigation concluded swiftly. The evidence Elena provided, even after years of manipulation, was airtight. Derek Voss was formally charged with financial misconduct, document falsification, and fiduciary breach. His assets were frozen. His public image collapsed. His name became synonymous with greed and downfall. And for the first time, justice felt real. But the final confrontation didn't happen in a boardroom or courtroom. It happened outside the Cole and Hawthorne building on a quiet Friday afternoon. Elena had just finished a meeting and stepped out into the crisp air when she saw him. Derek. Not the polished billionaire who once strutted across magazine covers, not the arrogant man who believed the world bowed at his feet, but a shell tired, disheveled, eyes bloodshot with sleepless panic. Elena, he said, voice cracking. She froze. Adrian, walking just behind her, stiffened instantly, but Elena lifted a hand lightly, signaling him to wait. She stepped forward, calm, steady. What do you want, Derek? He swallowed hard. To talk, please. The desperation in his voice didn't move her. Not anymore. You ruined me, he whispered. Everything I built, gone. Do you even care? Care? She repeated softly. Did you care when I slept on the floor of a tiny apartment while carrying your child? Did you care when you forged my signature? When you tried to destroy me to protect your own image? He flinched, shame slicing through him. Elena, I made mistakes. D'honor. No, she said. You made choices. He blinked, stunned. She continued, voice calm as stone. You chose greed over integrity. You chose cruelty over loyalty. You chose humiliation over love. Derek's shoulders collapsed. I lost everything. Elena inhaled, letting her words land with finality. No, Derek, you lost everything because you tried to take everything from me. He stared at her, chest rising and falling sharply. And then he broke. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm truly sorry. For a moment, she simply watched him, Not with hatred, not with longing, but with clarity. "You're not apologizing to me," she said gently. "You're apologizing to the version of yourself you destroyed." A tear slipped down his cheek. Elena stepped back, her hand resting over her stomach. "This chapter of my life is closed," she said, "and you're not part of my future." Derek opened his mouth, but no words came. Because he finally understood. He had lost her long before he realized she was worth keeping. Later that evening, Adrian walked Elena home. The city lights glowed like embers beneath a velvet sky. When they reached her door, he hesitated. "Elena," he said softly, "I want you to know something." She turned, heart warm. "You didn't rise because of me. You rose because you finally saw yourself the way I saw you from the beginning." Her breath caught, strong, resilient, capable of standing on her own. Then his voice lowered, gentle and sincere. "And when you're ready, I'd like to build a life with you. Not out of strategy, not out of circumstance, but because you are someone I admire. Someone I care for, someone I—" She placed a hand on his chest, stopping him with a soft smile. "I'm ready," she whispered. "For all of it." His breath trembled, but his smile was warm, unguarded, almost tender. And for the first time since her world shattered, Elena allowed herself to dream of joy, not borrowed, not fragile, but earned. Later that year, in a quiet ceremony at the Plaza Hotel, with Manhattan glittering like a promise through tall windows, Elena and Adrian exchanged vows. Her baby, now a giggling toddler with bright eyes, held her hand as she walked down the aisle. No scandals, no shadows, no more fear, just love, just healing, just a future she built with her own strength. And as she stood beside the man who helped her rediscover her worth, Elena knew one truth with absolute certainty. This wasn't her revenge arc, it was her rebirth. And just like that, our story comes to an end. If you're still here with me right now, listening to these last words, then maybe something in this journey touched your heart in a way you didn't expect. Maybe Elena's strength reminded you of your own. Maybe her quiet endurance echoed something you've lived through. Or maybe you simply needed a reminder that no darkness lasts forever. You know, the Stoics had a beautiful belief. The obstacle is the way. Meaning sometimes the very things that break us are the things that rebuild us stronger, wiser, and more alive. Elena didn't rise because life became easier. She rose because she finally recognized her own worth. And that's a lesson every one of us can carry. If you're going through something heavy right now, remember, you are not defined by what hurt you. You're defined by what you choose to become after it. So, my wonderful friends, if this story gave you courage, hope, or even just a moment to breathe, please don't leave without giving it a like, sharing it with someone who needs it, and subscribing to the channel. I'm right here with you, and we've still got so many journeys ahead.